Welcome back, folks, to another episode of Practical Spiritual Advice by Infinite You, which is me, which is you, and which is we. So as we strap in for another ride, so we can say we together on this roller coaster of life, let me introduce myself. My name is Harold Aho now. I'm a practical spiritual advisor and community activist, the owner and founder of Infinite You, Wellness Plus Synergy. On today's episode, we are going to get into the topic of addiction, as well as spiritual awakenings, and how they tie together and what may be the cause, the effect. We'll dive into maybe some theories. I may jump in with some stories of my own, because I am an ex-heroin addict. I got clean from the grips of addiction in 2005. And as I look back after my spiritual awakening, because I was not in that position at that time, I did not have my spiritual awakening at the age of 28. We look back and that is a date that a lot of people go through processes of transformation. It's your Saturn's return. So, looking back, I went through this great transformation from heroin addiction to freedom and reevaluating this new freedom, because in the grips of addiction, you are in your own prison. You are held to a drug that you can't take it. Like if you're really addicted, you can't take vacations without taking it with you or finding it there. Especially with opioids, because there is a physical part of that addiction where if you don't take it, you will go through physical withdrawals. And then the other stuff would have you with mental withdrawals and symptoms. And, you look back and wonder why you would put yourself through such a situation. What was the benefit? Why be stuck in it for so long? I was addicted to heroin for about a decade. Well, let me not say addicted, was using heroin for about a decade. The addiction probably was about 5-6 years maybe. But some of the underlying symptoms that I see, or maybe not the symptoms, but the underlying root cause, the root cause, not even the underlying, like this main thing that's causing people to want to escape. And I would say that would be the world that we're born into. Society isn't very kind to people that have a difference of opinion or weren't built for the system that we're born into, meaning working a 9-to-5, having to report to a boss, having to build someone else's dream up while you have your own, but no resources to accomplish them. And then the indoctrination of our school system and where it stands now and where it has stood for many years and decades, with teaching us things that we more than likely won't use going forward in life. 20, 30 years down the line, what created the success in it wasn't history class, or it wasn't, and this isn't to say that there aren't history teachers and trigonometry and all mathematicians and stuff, but there is a cookie cutter system that has been created that sends millions of children through the doors of this place, and it creates the world that we live in for a big part. And you got to kind of look at what things cause the human to feel out of balance, which would cause depression, would cause loneliness, because nobody really understands where you're coming from, and sometimes you don't even know what's going on. And I think that's because to clearly see that the world is not set up for our human condition or our human evolution through art, creativity, abundance, bliss, love, happiness, all those wonderful things that allow a human soul to express itself in many different modalities. And I think when we have these options of choice and, when we get out of a system that, and I'm speaking about the school system, we get out of something that didn't teach us how to survive, food, water, shelter, clean air, and then all the other spiritual and physical and emotional necessities. I mean, those are negated for this education system that is supposed to create workers. And I mean, you look into the history of the school system and all this stuff, and I don't want to harp on that too much, but for our business, Infinite You, it's a big mission to restructure or add in the curriculum and the guidance that could, stop this cycle right before it begins. If you let a cycle begin for so long, it gets into an inertia state and a momentum, and it's going to be a lot harder to stop that wheel once it's in motion. But if you can guide the wheel to be in motion in a different direction, then you may have a completely different situation. And, there's data, and there's a lot of information out there that would back me up on this theory that I have, that nature and sustainable curriculum could solve the addiction epidemic and depression and a lot of things that cause the stresses and the strifes of the world that we live in. Because, you take into the account as well that a lot of the drug addiction comes in at the teenage, phase where, the child is still under the wing of the parent. And if the parent is incoherent and not harmonic and, has some type of an addiction themselves, then what kind of role model are they setting when the child is at home? And so there's a lot of factors. Then you go out and you find children that have hit the streets because the home space is not conducive for their evolution. It's not creative. It's not expansive. It's not entertaining. And the people in it, so it's environment, it's your surroundings and the beings that surround you. And all these things play a factor in what choices that we make and what choices are actually available and presenting themselves as options. And, it's if you can just see this train of thought and imagine yourself, as a teenager, high school, maybe even middle school for some, where we started experimenting early, and how that came about. The children that you're hanging around with, the group that you're hanging around with, did they have happy homes? Was there a reason why they were out all the time? Was there a reason why they had, certain drugs available? Is there a pattern within someone's home that is within the group? And sometimes this is how these things infiltrate a group of teenagers that are all susceptible with hormones that are mixing and moving, and there's no guidance system around them, no safety net when they're in that position, because a lot of these children, a lot of us, when we go through this, we're on the verge of getting ready to leave the nest. And so we're solidifying a world outside of the home and outside of our parents and our families' wings from underneath that. And so this is inherently, this is the system that we're in. It's parents work, children go to school, we eat 3 times a day, we go to sleep at a certain time and wake up at a certain time. We're going to work for roughly 40 hours a week. Once we get out into the work field, it's going to be roughly about X amount of dollars. And we know that when we come out, it's going to be some shit job that we probably won't like. And if you try to go to college and do that thing, then you're stuck in school for, about 25 to 30 years of your life until you get out and create something that you actually enjoy. And so what's the process? How do we solve this issue before it becomes an issue and gains inertia? And I still think that's at the elementary school level, and maybe even before then when we get into some of the daycares. And, I'm bringing this up because something has transpired for me recently. A good friend of mine from high school, and we maintained the friendship even through our own battles of addiction. We weren't like hanging out all the time, other than in high school and maybe a little bit out of high school. But he's part of our core group of friends. And, even though some of us were able to escape the grips of addiction, my friend Richard was not able to. And, he was in and out of prison for many years. I mean, I don't know when he started going to jail, but for at least a decade, almost two, his life was really in and out of jail, running from the police, trying to find the next fix, overdosing at least a dozen times, and, just having this life of him wanting to see and be better, but just not able to make that shift. And, everyone has their own process and how they go from one state of being to another, and whatever that catalyst is for that person, I'm assuming there's a lot of emotions that tie that, whatever that's going to be, back to something in their childhood. Something that they're not able to let go, some trauma, some perspective on something that caused so much hurt and so much pain, that the numbing is a greater benefit than to sit with the pain. And we can look at pain, emotional pain, especially in multiple ways. But to me, it's almost like this cosmic force that has an opportunity to create an alchemical process of squeezing together this pain, along with your mental capacity of finding the bliss within it, within your own life, wherever that may be, whatever part in your life that bliss state may be, for however long it may be. But be able to squeeze these two opposing charges, this negatively charged experience against this positively charged experience with our emotions and with our intentions, and I'm speaking more to adults, because this is, I can't even imagine trying to grasp this as a teenager or even like a young adult. But to any adults that are maybe not even going through addiction, but maybe just going through depression and not being able to see the larger scope of where we are about to collectively go, I'm wanting to offer some remedy, and the remedy doesn't come in the form of me like, hey, do this breath work and focus on this chakra and say this 5 times. It comes in the form of clarity. What's actually happening? What's the alchemical process? Like, what ingredients just went into my cup, into my pot? And why am I feeling so heated up inside? And it is an alchemical process of squeezing together and creating friction, and the heat comes and the confusion comes with that also, because it's so much information and so much experience that it's hard to compartmentalize and put it in its place. So I'm here to offer clarity, because if you knew that whatever the negative experience that you're going through is, and that it's actually just part of a process, like when you're cooking, for some that'll be listening to this, you can imagine that the ingredients have their own consciousness or self-aware, state of awareness, and they don't actually want to get heated up and burned into a boiling pot. But when you mix all these things together, with love, and you make this delicious meal, and you feed, your family or 100 people or 1,000 people, it's something different. That is what alchemy is. It's taking ingredients and putting them together and creating something completely different than each of those ingredients on their own. And that's also synergy. I mean, if we're quantum beings, then synergy and all these things, they're quantum entanglements of energy and motion, emotion. So let me bring it back to Richard. For those that have listened to my podcast and to me and know me personally, or if you've never met me and you want to get to know me, I'm advising to take deep breaths and really close your eyes sometimes if you can. Don't do it if you're driving and listening to the podcast, but really jump around with me. I'm looking for ways to find out how quantum entanglement can pull people into a larger scope of what's being discussed. So being able to access each other through our vocal tones, or the way our manners are when we're face to face, the inflections in our voice and face, and all these different things add texture to the story. And I'm wondering if there's ways to pull people into the story, because it's coming from the heart and it has a harmonic universal tone that is inherently connected to each of us. And so I'm looking to grab people, or let me put that in a different word, to inspire a cosmic link, a cosmic synapse of coherent quantum information, because that's what I'm offering. And sometimes as we dive into this, it's like we're jumping across timelines and across experiences, and then we get back to the point that we started from. And when you look back, you actually just weaved a web of information that spans across time and space. And so this is what I offer. It's storytelling. It's quantum storytelling, I guess. But so let's go back to Richard. Richard finally succumbed to his addiction the other day, and this is what prompted me to get back to this topic of addiction. And I want to always leave everyone with some type of inspired story of taking yourself from one way of being to another and adding more frequencies, a higher frequency of bliss, of a bliss state. And this is what raising the frequency is. Because you can't say the word frequency without putting whatever you're measuring within that. And so the frequency of what? Like, I'm raising the frequency of like negative shit you got to deal with, or the frequency of, going to the store, frequency, like what's the frequency of what? And so the frequency that where I am here to raise is of bliss states. It's of magic. It's of love moments. It's of compassion. It's states of inner awareness, and all those types of things. So that's where we're sitting at. So this state of awareness that we're wanting to raise up to be seen today and through this episode at whatever time and space that you are listening to me now, in this forever now moment. It doesn't matter when I recorded this. What's happening is the quantum entanglement of listening to a voice across time and space and being in the state of observance, in the state of awareness. So with Richard's passing, what happened on his trajectory to this destination of leaving his physical body a couple weeks ago, he kept in touch with me, especially after my spiritual awakening. He was often said he was very proud of the work that was being done with raising awareness, and he was getting into meditation even when he was in prison or halfway house or whatnot. He was trying to maintain his focus, and it's obviously got to be a whole different game, because I didn't have my awakening until after I had my got clean. So I couldn't even imagine doing both at the same time. And I don't know what that process is, and I don't know what that looks like, and I don't know what I can only offer opportunities to use that as an extreme catalyst to take you from one polarity to the complete other side of the spectrum. But he kept in touch and was proud of even becoming, clean from this grip of addiction. And, for many of the years, he would continue to call himself a dirty, which, from our group, that's that person that's out there on the streets and they're doing all the wrong things, more or less. Rich was a good guy. He was a good friend, would, be there. He'd give you the shirt off his back. He would, beat up anybody quick or fight anybody quick in your name and in honor of you. And, that's the type of person he was. And his process was to keep in touch with me and my friend Alex, who is also super proud of him for getting clean. To see the difference in a person from being in that state to when they're not in the grips of addiction to the person that they can become. And then, of course, them at that point can see themselves into the future and be like, man, I have so many opportunities to be better and better and better and better and better. And it's almost like a catalyst moment where you can release the grips of that addiction, what can happen when you also have a spiritual awakening. So anyway, Richard, wanted that, just wasn't able to get to that point. I did see him working with me once he got cleaned, helping me build things, and he's a physical labor guy, so I saw him helping me move shit and build things and play with the children and eventually find his own partner, but there's no way that he would be able to do that with what he was still continuing to do. Even when he would come around every once in a while, every few years, he'd show up in San Antonio and be around for a few days and then get back out. And, if anybody's familiar with the area in Texas, he was staying in Navasota, which is near, I guess, like College Station, Texas A&M area. And, we're in San Antonio, is where he grew up, San Antonio, Texas. So when he would come back, he'd want to hang out. And, obviously the word is don't do or bring drugs into my home. I have my children, and it was, for whatever reason, extremely difficult for him to accomplish that goal. You'd often find him nodding out or going after a long trip to the bathroom, like, hey, I got to go to the bathroom. All right, you're in there for 30 minutes, and now you're looking really happy and super tired. And so he, with that, after he had done it as many times that he had done to so many people that were around him, friends, family, and so a lot of people started to cut him out of their life completely. No communication. I'm not going to respond to any of his messages. I don't care that you're back in town. No, we're not going to hang out. And what do we have to talk about? So his sister, other friends that were, very close to him, knew him longer than I did, would not answer his calls or his messages. And, I know before he passed, we had talked about this, and even, maybe a year before, he knew why people were doing it, and he understood too. But he did have the longing to hear their voice. He did have the longing to, say he loved them and also maybe hear it back from them. I mean, I can't even imagine, like, not being able to hear that from people because of the choices that you're making, even though you know that they do care and they do love you. To hear it and feel it is a whole different thing. And he did want that, and he wanted to be better, but he definitely understood why people, completely got him out of their lives. And so that's one part of the process, right? With someone passing, or even addiction and then passing, it's like you lose them twice. And neither one did you get to say bye. It's like, man, I just imagine that. Like, you lose someone twice, like, pretty much. And neither one you're able to say goodbye before they go. And, each have their own energy. One, you're probably pretty angry at the person. You're like, get the fuck away from me. You don't respect my boundaries and my children and the safety of my children. So that's a dickhead move. And then the other one is, I can't even say bye to you, and I'm also angry then because you're no longer here, you dumbass, because of your choices. And so he had quite a few people that had that experience where they didn't allow him back into their lives, and they're going through that as a process, and that can be guilt, that can that can lead to a lot of different things. But for everyone to know, and what Richard expressed to me was that he knew why and was okay with why. And I mean, if you've heard any not channeling, but where a medium comes in and talks to someone from the dead, and oftentimes that's the word that you get from someone that has passed from something tragic like that, or was addicted, or it was by their own fault, or whatever the case may be, is that the loved one is not angry, is not bothered, is not hurt, and truly understands what was happening on a deeper level. And he did before he passed. And, when he died here and he overdosed for the last time, he was back in San Antonio and was ready to restart his life here. And it wasn't but a few days after he got back into town that him and we saw each other. And I think he overstepped his boundaries again. He started looking really sleepy. I'm like, dude, come on. Are you tired, or are you fucking nodding out? And, but I picked him up as I was running some errands, and we were driving around as I was doing some things still. And, we had some conversations. He also told me how he was so happy about being back in the city, and, an opportunity for him to get a lump sum of money, fairly soon to restart his life had come up. And so I'm like, wow, dude, you actually have an opportunity to really do a whole new life. If you can stay clean and focus on these few things, we'll get to the promised land. And, getting to the promised land, from my eyes, from another's perspective, is a difficult thing to imagine, because it is a very big process. What I'm saying, promised land, is like we're buying land, we're living off grid, we're growing things, we're building things, we're creating things, our children happy, healthy, wealthy, and well, and safe, and all the things, and we inspire the world, and one by one, off-grid communities are popping up, and in the world, the big cities start to witness this, and they start to adopt the ideas, and before you know it, lo and behold, the whole world has shifted and is in a thriving, regenerative state of being. That's the promised land for me, where I don't have to work, nobody has to heal, and we're walking around in our true essence of creator beings, and creating things, almost out of thin air, but collectively. Because I know what can happen when we collectively put our dreams together and go out and systematically move in the spaces and the ways to do the things. So that's kind of hard for people to see, and I talk in those ways often. And when you haven't mapped it out as I have, so this again is why I wish I can pull people right into my consciousness, so I can show you all the things that I've already mapped out. But I digress. until I can get it on paper and on video, it's going to be a little bit more difficult. And then I guess, more and more that Maharishi effect as we grow and amplify each individual's light quotient, meaning the ability to take in more information and then disperse it coherently and harmonically to ripple effect that out into more so they can add to their light quotient. But until we get to the point where there's an abundance of people that have upped their light quotient and then, 100th monkey effect, Maharishi effect, kind of quantumly affect the surroundings and the other beings around them, where they start to pick up on the signals, and then we can start communicating in this fashion of telepathic communication where transparency is a must. And so this is again why things come to the surface for states of awareness and putting light on the situation as we clear out the signal feeds and these receptors that we have with our energy centers, whether that's through human design or your chakra centers or your meridians or whatever energy points you want to work with, micro, macro, corresponding, whichever ones, then you clean up and clear up the communication between those pieces and parts and how the energy transfers, that information transfers from one physical body to another. And then I think this will be a big shift. There should be some type of a breakthrough point. And I don't think that's too far from now. I mean, this is another, like, what's your perspective on what's too far from now? Because here, me in the 3D suit, that may be right after I transition. That may be 500 years after I transition. That may be 30 years from now. As a higher self being that can, see way deep into time and space and all the cycles itself, it may happen in a flash. And so it's all about perspective and what your true scope on time is. Because look, I'm 13 years into my spiritual awakening, and it was, well, you know what? I can't say that because it really doesn't feel like it was yesterday. Other than that was the beginning of my new self. There's that pinpoint spot of the age of 33, and then everything shifted from there, and I'm a new being, and it didn't take long, and I'm forever evolving now, and always spiraling and growing outward. And encompassing and incorporating new information and new data points, and my light quotient and the information that I have is so abundant. It goes into so many realms that make sense to bring a human being back into equilibrium, because you're in a vibe right now. You're in a vibratory state where you have been taken out of your equilibrium. Now, if you look at a gyroscope, like maybe a spinning top, that's kind of like it, but a gyroscope would have, and look, I'm not a scientist, and I didn't look up the definition before I started talking about this, and maybe not the definition, but like the mechanics of it. Does it take another spinning angle in order to create this thing that will stand up on its own? Because just like a top, when you spin it, now you've got this thing that's not vibrating. It's not moving back and forth. It's spinning. And it's spinning in a very, centrifugal, representation of itself, where it can hold itself up. It stands its own. And then once it starts to slow down and the top gets heavy, then you'll notice the vibration. And now the thing starts to weeble and wobble until it falls over. And so what we're doing is there's some type of an activation point where some other spin motion is set into play that, lights up, whatever that free energy device that comes from the core of yourself. And then now you're this gyroscope, this thing that just can float diagonally here, there, forwards, backwards, up, down, left, right. And you have freedom of movement. And that, to me, is more like a soul mission to have freedom of movement into quantum spaces that you desire, not the ones that you do not desire. You stay in a place, you see the incoherency, and you say, no, not here. And then you are able to move. Now, if you feel stuck, it's probably because you're vibrating and you're wobbling and you I mean, I just got I get visuals all the time. This is why I can't wait till we get to this telepathic state. Y'all are gonna crack up at some of the imagery that I have in my head when I start talking about these things, and it really makes a lot of sense on a very funny level. But someone that is, let's say, drunk, right? You could literally watch this incoherent drunk person they're walking straight, and for whatever reason their body is just going left, and there ain't shit they can do about it. They look like they're climbing up a mountain, but the mountain just that went horizontal, and now it's just stuck in this position. And then you'll see them too, they'll wobble around and find themselves in a circle, and that's how you get stuck. And having a clear vision on the direction that you want to go, I believe is so paramount. It's such a thing to look forward or outward into the person you wish to be, in the environment you wish to be in, and that state of being that you desire to be in, and then reverse engineer that, and then honor all the pieces and parts that take you through the process. And so everything is a process, right? Even when you get to that, in quotation marks, that end goal, there's still another process of, okay, now you're here. How do you tend to this space now? And then, once your soul gets tired of creating in this space, let's go to a whole nother level. And I'm sure well, you know what? I don't know. What I'm thinking about in my head is an inflection point, a pressure point, a breaking down of the old in order to build the new, a melting of one system. So let's say right now we've been in the third dimension and we're consciously evolving into a higher state of being. And in order to get there, you have to melt down all of the experience of that third dimension in order to take what you are building into the next space, because you don't just throw everything away, but there is some slag. There is some leftover junk. I don't want to call it junk. Stuff that no longer serves, that's due to stay in the space where the pattern that you're evolving from. So it's okay. Let me give you a visual. I'm gonna try to break this down. Sorry, I'm hanging out in the bedroom, so if my bed's a little squeaky, this thing is about to break down. Let me break it down. So say you're playing Connect 4. You've lost. Now you're starting to win. You're starting to get the game down. You're getting the flow down. And, now you're ready to move on to the next thing. You don't take the game of Connect 4 with you. You leave that behind because that's the pattern that you just learned from. But what's not seen, what's not physical, is what you've learned. That's the quantum mechanics. That's taking something from the physical realm and learning from it, taking it into the non-physical, being states of awareness and thought processes and patterns, and then using that in the next pattern that you're going into, which you'd say the game of life. Now you've got some things like, when I was playing Connection, Connect 4 or whatever, there's some correlation to this game, and then you leave that game behind. You don't take it with you into the next game, other than the not seen, the thought process, the learning, the information that you gather. And it can be all kinds of things. It could be the fucking colors of the game pieces somehow make some kind of, correlation to the next game that you're playing. And, that's kind of what we're doing, is we're alchemizing a school of thought, a school of being, which is this reality. And so this is why, this heating up process and climate change and global warming, it's part of a cosmic process. And it's us, in my opinion, that's creating it, because we're in the soul process of learning a bunch of things, alchemizing them, and then creating that heating process, because you're literally putting into friction the negative and the positive. They're bumping into each other. They're scraping into each other. They're causing an alchemical process that creates heat. It's an induction, or a transduction process of this squeezing together and creating a hard spark, and that will take you into this next phase of who you are. And you'll burn off some of the old stuff, which is due to stay, because it's just part of the pattern. It's part of the school of thought and that school that you were in. You don't take. So anyway, so all of this is part of a process, and we're knee deep in the game, and you can look at it as a process, or you can be way deep in it and not see that it will end, and it will cycle back around. Like, this is the whole thing about the calendar system. We're not on a linear calendar system. The Mayan calendar system it shows you how we are in a cycle of cycles and cycles, and there's large waves, bigger, bigger, all different sizes of waves and cycles within the whole cycle. So that means some part of the data will come back again. A new combination of information will come through, and it is always coming through in the always now moment. But it's just the combinations of your awareness, the planets, the stars, and everything comes in to play out some type of theme. And you can dive into the combinations and say, you know what, next week I'm going there when the Saturn aligns with Uranus, and all that shit. And then use it to blend together a new creation. And I mean, this is how we're connected to the cosmos. You're a cosmic being playing out some human experience of separation just because you forgot. And it's time to come to gather. And that's where we come to gather and tell these stories. And this is why, this is practical spiritual advice being for you. It's a storytelling process. I mean, I'm literally just telling you, this is all a story right now. I'm not telling you all the stories of my life, but this is a story in itself. This is an experience of a podcast that I can go to someone else and tell them the story of what I talked about here. So it's all stories. This is all reflections. This is all data transference back and forth, and to be honored and seen, is an amazing thing to take part in. And to honor and see is an amazing thing to take part in. Because when we do those things, because look, I can tell you, the only way I can come clean on all this stuff is because I have witnessed people come clean in themselves. I've listened to them. I've heard their stories. I've felt their stories. I've cried with them. I've truly witnessed people at the level that they are at, as well as the new level that they are to become, and the old level that they left from, because it's all one being in a perpetual process. Everything's in motion, everything is changing. So I can't hold you to the old self. I can witness the patterns, allow for shifting and changing to be more aligned and coherent with the person that I am, so we can see each other in a specific way that we want to, depending on what we want to get out of our experience. Because there may be some people I don't want to talk to. I don't want to have these deeper conversations with. Not in that way. Maybe this person, I want to just build things and get into the superficial joking around and just be a goofball with someone. Each play their part. And that's this alchemical process, is when we communicate with each other, we're looking for the best in each other, and we're allowing for the slag, for that extra stuff that is actually supposed to stay behind, that they need to let go. We see our reflections in those states of being as this process in motion. And we hold space for the being that we want to see. And that's what I do. That's what I be. I want people to see me in process and say, wow, that guy's got potential. Because look at all the shit that he does and he speaks about, and the way he communicates, and the way that he actually listens to me. I've had people come to me that were the little brother and sister of a friend of mine. Then, and they would tell me, like, out of all my brother's friends, you were the coolest one. You always said hi to me, this, that, and I'm like, man, I don't even remember doing all that. And it's just an inherent thing for me. I mean, I was born on 11/22/77 at 11 p.m. on the dot. I have no choice but to be a harmonic code, whether it's aware, in a state of awareness or not. That's inherently, it's my codex, it's my blueprint. If you draw back to what everything that is me, you would find coherency, you would find harmony, you would find, synchronicities, you would find numbers, you would find colors and tones and glyphs. That's me. And I wish everyone would see that within themselves. And when they can see themselves as these pieces of the process, now you get to your true state of being, which is that piece to the process. And we each hold different pieces to the process because we're being looked at from multiple people that can say, you're the piece to my process. Because I did that last night on a TikTok. Some lady was watching one of my videos, and I was just speaking about how I make orgonite and my intention behind it. And she said, this is exactly what I've been thinking about for years. And you just answered one of my questions. Thank you so much. And we don't have to, for her and I, we can communicate more, but we don't have to ever again. And she just got a piece to her process. And for me to imagine what that could be for her and how that could elevate her to some other level, like, holy shit, that's fucking amazing. And I barely know, and I don't even really know you. And so we each have gifts, and we each have these things. And, Richard served his purpose. He did come back home before he passed away. He was happy to be back home. If someone that was going through this process of addiction and they OD'd so many times, and everybody was literally like waiting to get this call for a decade plus, and, he finally comes home. We're like, ooh, great. And one of my friends was like, man, that's very testy because this place, he can find drugs quick. No matter, he can be gone for 100 years. He'll come back and he'll find a place where they're like, oh, that's where they do. Like, that's his gift. Like, maybe if he could find like plant medicines and herbal remedies and stuff, he'd be able to hunt those down too. He's like a hound dog for drugs. Maybe he can be a hound dog for medicine. Maybe he's going to help me be a hound dog for medicines. I don't know what this process is. Part of the unseen magic that I love to dive into and allow the unfoldment to present itself to me. So, he did come back home. He was let back into his mother's house that he passed away in. I would say be way more comfortable to pass away in than being on the street and letting some random person find you. And he was in a home that he was loved. And so to be grateful for that, I absolutely can be. To be grateful that he really did see what I was trying to put out and saw that as a good thing. Now I know that he's able to help me even more now. And it solidifies him as being part of my soul community, and I've known that for a long time. I know some of my people have fallen off that I was really good friends with, best friends in high school, that because of whatever political things that I put out, they no longer want to speak to me, which is fine too, because everybody's in their own process, and I still love them. They're parts of me, they're fractals of me. And whatever purpose that serves, it'll unfold itself. But I know Richard really believed in what I was doing and wanted to be along on this ride also. So, whether he couldn't get rid of the physical grips of the addiction, he's still riding through on this. And I see all the signs that show me he's going to present himself in some form or fashion out on my travels and my journey through this process of self-discovery and self-actualization, and my heart being imprinted throughout this entire holographic matrix. Because to me, that's the goal. I want my heart to be spread out all over this place. And all the decrees from my heart and the love that I have for myself and for humanity and the entire process of it all. I want to see that everywhere. I want to see it represented in things that don't look like me. I want to see it represented in ideas that are ideas that I wouldn't even have thought of. I want to see new things that inspire me. I want to witness art and creativity on the most monumental level that expands past this earthly plane and gets out into the cosmos, into the universe, and I want these ideas of people to just radiate bliss from every pore and every meridian point in their complete soul. And hey, I don't know, can you fault me for that? Is that something wrong in that? So I think I've hit all the points on the topic today. I think we got through this process of addiction and what it might be. And, let me explain is part of the process just to inspire any drug counselor or addiction treatment clinic or whatever, that to take a being that did not sit well with the current way of the world and to try to mold them back into it is probably not going to be the easiest thing to do. And I would say that it would not stick, because we're leaving that world unless that person would literally just disappear from the rest of us that are going to this heaven on earth scenario. So what I think would help addicts and those that are not adapting well with the current societal norms, that we should start creating spaces that are more akin to their soul and their expression, and give them passion and purpose for life and creativity and art, and a way to express that easily, not difficult, and all their necessities. I think we would have a set of people that could make a choice to stay away from the grips of addiction way easier, and to refrain from ever going back there and to relapse. The numbers would just completely shift. And I know that because as an ex-addict, if I was put in a situation where that was the option, then there would be an easy choice. Go work for a living for some shit show that you don't want to do, or go create a life of your choosing. The choice is pretty freaking simple if we can make it simple to actually accomplish that. And there's plenty of land out there. There's plenty of people to do the things. And, we're about to come on to like free energy for the entire planet, and all kinds of amazing things are about to transpire. So just hold that dream. Let's weave it together. Let's have this option for, the homeless, the mentally ill, the addiction sufferers, the depression sufferers, the people that feel alone. Let's find spaces where everybody can find their equilibrium, where they can find that balance and harmony within themselves through their own stories, through their own process, and honoring of themselves and the reflections and the people around them, and not, being bitter about the way people have handled their process. Because, at the end of the day, that's what's happening, right? Like, you're looking at people becoming transparent, and their physical body is, for whatever is making them point at you and say, you did this, and you're literally listening to them and watching them do the things they're saying that you're doing. So it's funny to watch. You can laugh at it. You can say, wow, what a process. Look, you just became completely transparent. Now, you don't have to tell them that, because you'll trigger them even more. They even will try to attack you even more and say more things, deeper things about themselves as they go through the pointing at you phase. But just know it's part of the process, and they're really just being transparent. And, if someone's saying that you're a bad parent and you do this, then those are things that they think about themselves. And to imagine what that, like, if you thought that about yourself, like, I'm truly a bad parent, or I'm truly a shitty worker, or I'm really lazy, or this, that, and the other, then, you might not feel so good. And so, those are some of the things that people are going through. So allow the process to unfold. It's going to be ugly at times, and sometimes on the other end, it's worth it, because the bliss is just so magnificent that you can't miss it. So the other thing, as we're done with the addiction and, what this theory is of how we can actually stop that from ever starting, don't let the inertia step in. I want to give everyone a catch up on where we're at with things. We talked about the Infinite You Journey app and its development, and that is still in process. We also have the Mayan Day Out of Time celebration that'll be happening on 7/25/2024 here in San Antonio. That's going to be at the Shriners Auditorium for all the local listeners. And what else? Oh, shit, that's right. We've got a book. The book, I believe I've talked about it on here, but it's called The Beings. And that is, I still got to get this solid number on how many chapters and authors we have. But if my numbers add up correctly, we're sitting at like 15, 16 authors. And, the gist of this book is each of our own personal experiences with extra-dimensional, cosmic, whatever beings that have given messages to us. And those messages are coming through. Some of the writers are still on a discovery of what that is. I feel I have discovered exactly what that information, why I experienced what I did. So that's my part to the book, is to bring it home and to give the practical application of what all these crazy, cosmic, quantum, metaphysical experiences actually boil down to in physical prompts and action steps to take to get us to where we want to go. And of course, I mentioned it. It's the school system. It's putting garden-based and sustainability curriculum within all of our public school system, and having our children come out of that feeling with, having a sense of safety, some type of a security net that they can just leave the shit show and say, you know what, I actually just want to go off grid. I don't want to attempt getting that $150,000 job and attempt this type of life. I want to go that way and get out into nature and go a little bit slower. So that's the crux of like what Infinite You is really, really here to do on one part of the mission. But this book is going to be amazing. We did get the foreword written by Cameron Grant, who is a world-renowned ufologist in the field for over 40 years. We're also working on a docu-series that will have the authors, and wait till it comes out. We'll give more information on the docu-series, but I think that's going to be a fucking blast with this. And this is still talking about all the stuff happening with the book as it comes out. It's going to be released August 21st. The pre-sales are available now. Go to infiniteyou.info. We'll add the link onto the website officially. Right now it's not up there. We are transitioning from one web hosting platform to another, so we'll figure it out if we can do it before or after, but somehow on there you'll be able to find The Beings and how to pre-order your book. It's only $9.99 to put up on your Kindle, and the hard copies and everything will be coming out in August. Now next year, 2025, we have 3 events that are planned for this book release, and we'll be in deep swing, and the pendulum, the inertia will be kicking in this direction. We're going to be doing panels, interviews on YouTube and podcasts and all kinds of things to talk about all the juicy information that's in the book and where it leads us. And then we're going to have an event in San Antonio for the Mayan Day at a Time for next year. That's 7/25/25. So if you add everything up, that's 777. And that'll be at Techport Arena. I'd advise anybody to do a little deep dive on Techport Arena and see the crazy stuff that's going on there, who it's owned by, and da-da-da-da-da. And then, so San Antonio, San Diego, and Sedona are the 3 places that will be hosting events that will be for the NDI, Near Death Institute, and the tour for the book, and also the other books that will be coming out, and the previous books that are out will have different panels, different themes for each of the event spaces, but we have those coming up. Also here in October, Medicine for the People spiritual gathering will be going down. If you haven't gotten your tickets, I would advise highly to get your tickets before the prices raise again. That is a local spiritual gathering that's been happening twice a year for a little over 11 years. And it's about 300 to 500 souls come out. It's a family-friendly event, and we have everything you can think of for your spiritual awakening. The workshops, the healers, the readers, the vendors, the sound, the music, the dance, the cacao, the kirtan, like everything under the sun will be at that event. So that'll be great. And in October, we've got Solar Punk Summit. So I highly recommend that event as well. So just to backtrack real quick, loveisourmedicine.com for the Medicine for the People spiritual gathering. And then for Solar Punk Summit, that is an event that is really, focused on the integration of technology, nature, it's an ideology. So I would highly look up Solar Punk as the ideology and what it means. And Solar Punk Summit is a take on that with a festival for 4 days in nature, communing and dancing and playing and workshops and speakers and all the like. And Amber, myself, and the family will be out at both of those events. You can catch us, come to the workshops. I'll definitely have either speaking engagements or workshops, and still debating whether I want to set up and vend and have my organite stuff there. Let's see, what else? App development, the books coming out. We got the Mayan Day Out of Time celebration. We are still working on some of our online courses, but we do have some stuff available. So click the link on the website if you want to book a session, and we'll get into the human design, galactic calendar, and all the great stuff to help you get aligned. So I can give you basically, I'm going to help you teach you how to read the maps that are the maps to the stars, the maps to yourself, and then you use your story on how to integrate those, convert the dates, the transits, and all that stuff, so you can see the cosmic undertone. So that's the gist of our online courses. Please follow, like, share, subscribe, hit the notification button on all platforms. That's this one, that's YouTube, that's Instagram, that's Facebook, that's TikTok. And then, follow us on our newsletter in case all the social media things shut down. And I think I feel complete. That's right. I did want to mention my wonderful cosmic partner, Amber, is out at the property where Solar Punk Summit is going down this year. And, they're doing a little pre-activation. She's hanging out with some friends and Violet Ray. So I needed to mention Violet Ray also because she wanted me to, because it was her birthday the other day. She is now 4 years old, and she is Violet Ray Sunshine, my youngest of my Holy Trinity, my 3 girls. And, the other 2, Sadie and Autumn, I might as well just throw them in there. And then we got the boys, Malachi, Christian, and Javi, and everybody's doing great. The family's doing great. We could use some support in financials. So if you want to purchase a product, purchase a session, help support in that way. Sacred reciprocity, everything that you get from me, whether it's a service, a product, or coming to the events, you're always getting way more than what you paid in. We do still pay bills around here. We still have car notes. These children I just mentioned, hey, they still like to eat. They like to flush the toilet and wash and bathe themselves. So, we got to keep these things flowing as we're still in this transitory state. And so any kind of support, sponsors, donations, we would love to see any support, and we'd give you a complete shout out if you like that type of stuff. And with that, we want you guys to love always in all ways. Peace.